Well, hello, everybody. We're
Hello.
here. We're finally here.
The raccoons were jealous. I keep telling y'all, the raccoons are just jealous of my flirting with Squeaka. They couldn't handle it. I don't know what to tell you.
We had to do a last-minute cavalry charge at the oncoming ranks of raccoons. So, but we're finally here now.
They wouldn't be that scary, but when you get 3 of them stacked up in a trench coat, they put up a fight.
They do. They do.
I know.
The fisticuffs.
Yes.
Raccoons are like ninjas.
So, how are we doing this evening, everybody?
Doing all right.
Doing all right.
Yeah, doing great.
How you doing?
And this, a little tired. I wasn't expecting a raccoon battle today or this evening beforehand, but you know what? I think I can make it through.
Good. Mando, how are you doing?
A little sinus congestion, but now that Squeaka I know is in the chat, I'm doing much better. Except for the raccoons, they can just continue to be jealous.
Yes, those jealous raccoons. Mounted Infantry Matt, how are you doing?
Mostly okay. So allergies, a little New Jerseyism, a little arthritis. Nothing death or a full body transplant won't cure.
Wow, okay. So we've got me flirting and you just wishing death upon yourself. Okay.
The journey begins at death.
Death is only the beginning.
Death is only the beginning. We never see him
let's say
again.
hello to the chat real quick. Who we got?
Yeah.
The Gourd King.
Woo!
Gord was talking with himself for a while.
Thrice Gourd King. These 3 kingdoms. The 3 kingdoms of Gord. Say hello.
We 3 kings.
We 3 gourds.
There. Good to see you there. Boosh.
The herbider. You have a stroke there?
Is that the language of those Guido? The language of Guido on
I don't know. I can't translate.
I will check that out, Boosh. Incoming video. I'm assuming it has something to do with raccoons.
Probably.
And there's Squeaka.
Squeaka.
The best.
Hello,
mouse.
dear.
Oh, somebody throw a bucket of water on Mando.
Oh no.
Copa coming in here being rude.
Copa. What in the world? Copa.
What's up, cannoli?
Americus. Hail. Nice.
Sorry, Americus. The raccoons attacked and we had to do our duty.
Yes.
It was war, I tell you, war.
Hello, Melvin. Good evening. So yes, how did you like this movie? This is where we fight. This is where they die.
This is where the raccoons will become hats.
Time for a good show, lads. Aim those revolvers at the enemy and fire! Fire till you see the enemy. I'm watching too much Shark.
So this movie, how did y'all like this movie? I know it's came from out of left field, but I like doing that to my guests.
I mean, it was the old World War I movie. It wasn't like a lot of other World War I movies that I've seen personally, but I liked it.
Yeah, the beginning, there's a lot of little time jumps, at least from what if I wrap my head around it. And so it kind of takes its time getting set up, and that setup kind of feels a little bit disjointed, but once it kind of settles into things and you kind of wrap your head around it and figure out what's going on, it's quite enjoyable. They don't like overly dramatize things. It's not heavy-handed. It's just kind of a straightforward tale.
Yeah.
Well, I think if they had called the Battle of Beersheba, it might have been a more accurate name because the whole movie was setting up that battle. If you think about it, it wasn't so much about the Lighthorsemen who had other engagements in World War One. And I was saying off the air, I understood the context of what they were talking about, mounted infantry and all that sort of like the transition to World War One, blah blah blah. But the battle itself was the interesting thing, right? And so that has set up the battle, and obviously this is a true story about some true characters. So that established those characters along the way and how they got to where they were and so forth. So, like if they had called the Lighthorsemen at the battle, like something to indicate the battle's name, it might have been a more accurate title. It was still a good movie from that point of view, though.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah,
like if they had called Saving Private Ryan, like surviving D-Day, like you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I forget when this movie came out, but I think it came out when it's like when Australia does their World War One celebration or Remembrance Day or something. I think that's when this came out.
Well,
I'm not
when
sure.
I was looking it up, like it came out around some other World War II, World War One Australia stuff. Like I think Breaker Morant they mentioned. I know I've seen that, and the Anzacs. I knew who they were. So I had never heard of this film until you said it before, Jacob. Except for the one guy who was from the Hammer film, I recognized him right away. So that you're right. I think it was the early '80s just came out, or mid '80s, something like that.
87.
Yeah. So it would have been 1915, 50 years, 65, 75, maybe it was on the 7th anniversary of this type of thing that then someone thought to make this movie, something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I grew up with this movie. I mean, I watched this when I was a little kid. It's like, yeah, this is cool. Right.
I mean, it's got horses, so automatically, like, I'm a horse gal. I like horses. Yee.
I like that opening. It just kind of just lets the sound effects play for a little bit while they're rounding up the horses before the music kicks in. And let me just go ahead and say right from the beginning, music in this is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
So these guys are, as you can tell by my name, these are mounted infantrymen, not a cavalry unit. So
right.
And historic, like for preservation of history, I read they still exist today. A small group of them with the horses, right? But after this war, mounted infantry became unarmored infantry, like troops in like unarmored troop carriers versus armored cavalry and armored infantry, people in tanks and things like that. So the terminology still exists in use for these type of soldiering and all that, but obviously they don't use horses anymore, except in like what was the movie where the special forces guys were in Afghanistan and they went on horses?
Yeah, I was thinking of that too, and I couldn't think of the name either.
Thor was in it.
Yeah.
Hemsworth. Oh God, that was such a good movie too. Anyway, other than
something strong,
like that, you don't ride horses in the battle anymore.
12 strong.
12 strong. Yeah.
Wait, no. Is it?
I mean, they were even using horses, cavalry against the German tanks early on, so they were still had that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So okay, what did I say? So I'm repeat myself. Okay. So at this time in the world, and it's kind of still true today, but the transportation's better. There were basically like 6 or 7 industrial centers of the earth, right? There's U.S., there's Britain, there's France, there's Germany, Russia, and some Japan, and there's 6, and I think China becomes one by the end of World War II, right? So in those theaters where those countries are, having horsemen charge tank lines is stupid because there'll be too many machine guns, too many tanks, too much artillery. But because of the inability to transport this stuff, say to the Middle East back then, they can still use these mounted troopers effectively because there wasn't enough density of machine gun fire to basically kill everyone in one swoop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like, I guess he's the main character, right?
This Peter.
But yeah, he's
Peter Phelps. Yeah. So
yeah.
you all may recognize him as Trevor from Baywatch.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah.
Never seen that. He was also in a movie called what is it? Oh, another Australian movie.
And Beard and I were looking up all the cast members of this show at one point. Apparently, they've all been in a bunch of the same TV shows and movies around this time period.
Yeah. Man, all the good old days when you could just hop up on a train and ask what it takes to become a mounted infantry.
Now, if you did that, there'd be like a SWAT team taking you out.
Yeah, all he had was some dude who just say, "Hey, get down from there."
What? I'm police. Bang, bang, bang. Oh.
Basically.
So then it cuts to Bathsheba.
Is this Beersheba or is this in Gaza?
Beersheba.
Okay. Because I was a little bit confused at the beginning if it showed kind of the initial shelling at Gaza versus Beersheba.
So this movie is about the Battle of Beersheba. There's a line that the Germans and their allies had was the Turks, I think, had formed along a series of cities across the desert where the water was, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And one end was Beersheba, the other end was it Gaza, whatever the name of the city was.
Yeah, I think so.
And the premise in the movie is they've been stuck trying to take the British have been stuck because Gaza. There we go. The Turco-German army. They've been basically the line has been held by the Germans and the Turks, right? Mm-hmm. And they have, for various logistical reasons, obviously they have the water. Plus, their people are more used to operating in this area than the British who were initially in command of the area is the best way to put it.
Right.
Right.
And then they make the premise earlier in the film that the British who were in command here, the guy who was in command had no idea how to use mounted infantrymen effectively in combat, and which is a setup for later in the movie when they get an actual commander who knows how to use them.
Right.
So
yeah,
a lot of this is a setup for the end, the Battle of Beersheba at the end, so you understand what goes on.
And it's typical. Like you got a new force of specifically trained soldiers, and they're immediately used wrong.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, this was quite common in a lot of that old military mindset of, so how do I put it? So back around when the U.S. Civil War happened, right before that in the 20, 30 years, a couple of German generals wrote some treatises. One was Karl von Clausewitz, who wrote On War. And him and another guy, I think, named Jurgens, their treatises, the generals started taking those to heart to change old warfare into modern warfare. Like in the U.S. Civil War, the North was losing until Grant and Sherman, who were big followers of Clausewitz and Jurgens, adopted their principles and tactics, right? And slowly from that time forward, this is only like 50 years later, basically, those sort of tactics and logic, logistics, it's all spreading throughout the world. But the officer corps, for example, after that became merit promotions from younger officers who were right. Whereas we're still at the time period when the British, in particular, have hereditary commanders, like the children of the nobles, basically, are still your ranking officers. So some of them get there by merit, and some of them don't.
Right.
And it's a really interesting point of history, as war transition between World War I and World War II, and then finally after World War II to sort of the more modern version of how we see war. You know,
Mhm.
because
Right.
they're not too far off from marching in line. And at the time we do this, like row after row after row, and just firing until you could decrease the density of the opposing fire. The industrialization of war happened in World War One. Tolkien with the battle of the battle I never remember. Where was the first mass use of artillery, and the bodies were in craters of bodies, and this is the first. This began to happen where the industrial impact on war happened, and we're still there's we see the example. This is something. Well, this is the point where he says the British general doesn't know how to use the troops properly, and they're not. They aren't. You'll hear in the movie these aren't cavalry; they're mounted infantry, which means they use the horses for transport, but not for battle per se.
Yeah.
Technically, that's a little off because the light horsemen, while the horses themselves, if you don't know the difference, the horses aren't trained for battle. That's the difference between a cavalry horse and a transport horse. But so like the horse won't fight other humans; it'll just panic. Whereas a trained mounted war horse will hit the people trying to hit the rider.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's very expensive. There's no way you can have 100,000 troops like that or whatever. So
Right.
those were
Yeah,
considered
war
expensive
horses
horses.
were very expensive
Yeah.
to train, and breeding was a fairly important thing. Like just a lot of work went into a war horse and
Yeah.
creating one.
It's
Right.
really fascinating to just the transition through World War I and World War II, how everything sort of evolved over that 40-year period to, what we have today almost.
I like how the German commanding officer calls out their distinguished feathers in their hats.
Right.
I like their style.
The plumes.
If I recall correctly, when was Teddy Roosevelt president? Right before World War One. Yeah, so he was a cavalry officer from like the late 1800s before he became a politician. Um, so the cavalry tradition, well, I mentioned off here, the way that I've learned about what cavalry was and what it was, Colonel Potter from MASH, his background is as a World War One cavalry officer. So
Yeah. Patton was a cavalry officer too.
Oh.
He even invented a cavalry sword. Yeah, and the British here, that it's a misconception. Okay, they're mounted infantry, so they treat it like, well, they just ride to where they're going to fight and then get on foot and walk in. They're
Right.
supposed to ride into where they're going to fight and dismount and fight right there, but they have them dismount and walk right into artillery fire.
Which is the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
and there are British officers who would know what to do with this sort of trooper. I mean, the British have them too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they're not as effective in Europe in World War I because of the industrial issues, making them less prevalent. But in something like the desert
And I like-
environment, where you would need a mobile force of any sort, would be advantageous.
Right.
I like this. This guy has him write out a message to his higher ups, pretty much bad mouthing them, and then he just takes it and trashes it.
Yeah. It's like writing an angry tweet and then deleting it.
Yeah, right.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of and seen. Throw it away.
Or getting a text message all ready to go and be like, no, I'm gonna regret this. Just go ahead and delete it.
Well, it wouldn't be acceptable. I mean, he's of the nobility. It's not acceptable for him to fail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the
But he's
situation.
Australian, though, isn't he?
I don't know.
Weren't they still part
I don't
of
think
the
they're
English
Australian
Empire
dead.
at this point, though?
They were, but I don't know if they had their lords over there in Australia, did they?
I think Australia is still technically part of
don't
the UK today. They just don't acknowledge anything other than the Queen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
And man,
historical thing.
they got a they got a pretty good number of horsemen to be in this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's impressive. I think that the most extras in a battle scene is Waterloo. I think that movie.
I remember that. Yeah. There are some Japanese war films from medieval times that have a lot of extras too. Waterloo.
Yeah. Yeah, these two guys are discussing the British are getting a new general to lead them because the one there is not doing very good. These are the other 4 characters in it.
Yeah, I had a hard time keeping them sorted out in my head.
And 2 of them look very similar. These 2 look a lot alike.
Yeah.
Are you saying all Australians look alike?
Yes, they do. They all look like Steve Irwin.
Well, it's that tough environment. They all look like because they have to survive that environment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they talk about this regiment also fought in Gallipoli too. So that was a bad time.
Oh yeah, and then they passed the results of using their type of infantry improperly.
Yeah.
That's got to be really encouraging.
That's got to be a rough ride right there.
Yeah, I did think that whenever I saw that, I thought, boy, these guys got it rough. They're nearly dead, and they're strapped to a camel that's just flinging them back and forth.
Yeah.
Better that than being in the desert dead, though. I mean,
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what sucks worse, though? Not for the troopers back then, probably for the actors who have to lay in those stretchers and doing that.
Oh my! I get motion sick too easy. I'd be like, nope, I can't do this no more.
No, the focus was off. We got to do that one again. Roll it all back. Reset.
Oh man. This guy. Like, oh, it's a woman.
Somebody completely covered.
Yeah. And the other guy's like grabs him. No, come on.
So did I understand this properly? Like, did they kind of spot those British officers or troops and think that they're going to go start a fight?
Yes.
But
yeah.
then they were found themselves actually greeted warmly.
There were other Lighthorsemen in the bar.
Oh, okay.
We're all friendly with the troops.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the guy's like, hey, let's
even to this day, different troop types and from different countries just get into fights. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this guy's like, let's go get a drink. He's like, every time you get a drink, you want to start a fight. It's like, okay, I want to go start a fight.
I want to have a reason to start a fight. That's why I need to drink. Why don't you just start the fight? No, I never thought of that.
Well, if you've ever seen Donovan's Reef, if I remember correctly, it was when the Australians show up that the Islanders, the American, the most troops got in the Islander are American and British troops, and there's a natural fight that just breaks out. So
1776, man. We still have issues.
That's right.
Throwing that tea in the harbor again.
Yeah, did they go in the bar in this place and they're like, or actually they clap that the Australian, they clap for the Lighthorsemen and actually start singing an Australian song.
Yeah.
Well, because
And
the
they don't
troops
really
that
know
had
how
been
to
there a
handle
while
it.
had already bonded, and over the bull crap that was going on.
Yeah.
That's a shot right there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I guess if you can't get drunk and have a fight, just go get drunk in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. That looks like an ad right there.
It
A beer ad.
does.
Beer, mate. Beer. Foster's Australian beer.
Yeah, I like this little motorbike this guy rides up on.
Oh yeah, that old style.
Just a motor and a frame.
Basically,
Much.
yeah.
The horses are probably like, replacement.
They took our gerbs.
The horses are like, it'll never.
Just
It'll
walk
never.
over, kick him off the bike, and just
work.
trash the bike, and walk back. To get ready to kill him.
Well, when you really get a look at the camp these guys are living in, it's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, the Middle East is not a very, it's a beautiful place, but it's not very easy to live there if you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Desert sucks.
Yes.
Although the Australians will be used to it because their country is like 80% desert. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
they
how
still
can
lost
get
a war
away.
to emus.
Yeah.
That's the best thing ever. We always love to say that Australians are so tough and blah, blah, blah. They lost to giant birds. Remember that, folks. All of a sudden, we hear Lethal Lightning in the chat going, "What are you talking about?" Blah, 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 blah.
So they're out scouting like remote wells, right, to see if any of them actually have good water. Because that's what the battle is all coming down to. They're running out of water, so they have to take some territory in order to get water.
Right.
But they kind of mentioned that at some point that some of the sources have been like tainted with oils and things.
You're following the water as you retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which
it would take
much
months
sense
for that to clear out. So in theory, that would slow the army down.
And they're like, "Oh, there's a dude, get him."
He kind of had a Han Solo moment here. Chases the one guy and then has to turn around.
And he's got the goggles, so you got to be a good guy.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Or an anime main character back in the 90s.
Yes.
Yes.
Digimon for the win.
Gotta catch them all.
That's Nancy's trivia question, guys, by the way. When Naruto first appears, Naruto's a little earlier in the 90s, he has goggles. And the reason he has them but doesn't keep them is it's because Kishimoto's anime and manga influence was from like the late 80s and 90s. So the appearance in the first episode was a tribute. And then it disappeared as he moved forward.
So this guy takes one through the leg into his horse.
Yeah.
The poor horseman.
Well, they didn't tell us at the end no horses were actually harmed during the filming of this movie.
Right.
Yeah. Except this one.
Yeah.
Except that one.
Well, that's not a horse. That's a guy in a horseshoe, so it was okay to shoot him.
Yeah, that's pretty good shooting to shoot somebody with a rifle on horseback. And you think this guy's going to be in the rest of the movie, you know, but he's not in it very long.
No,
Well, that's why I said that it was a little misleading, the title. Like, because it's not about the Light Horsemen per se. It's about the Battle of Beersheba and how the Light Horsemen were influential in that. You know what I mean? So they're establishing the characters and following into that battle and setting up why that battle happened per se, right? But they're not like, you know, but the title gives you the idea it's about really about these guys and their adventures in the war. You know what I mean? Not about the actual.
Right.
Yeah. So this horse is pretty much gut shot, and it's just not going to survive.
It still ran pretty far and pretty good being gut shot, but
yeah, it did.
The inability to give it medical care before a wound would set in, because it probably didn't penetrate beyond the horse's muscle, given that it went through the guy's leg first, you know, and it was, you know, and all that. But I mean, in this circumstance, you probably would have to kill the horse, because you don't have, unless you have a veterinarian, whatever they call a surgical veterinarian. There's a name for it, I don't remember. There who can actually sedate the horse, check the wound directly, see if the bullet penetrated to the lethal part of, you know, and then, you know, I'm assuming since they have people antibiotics starting in, they would have some horse antibiotics. So
right. I mean, plus they're out on patrol, so they're nowhere near camp where they would have medical care.
Right.
And when it comes down to a tool, which is what the horse is at this point, or their soldier who's wounded, you got to leave the tool behind and take care of your soldier.
Yo.
Boy, we just start right off with an Old Yeller moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's been sent back to medical to get the wound taken care of.
Like, just game. I don't know, what is this game called? Just throw the knife at your buddy's foot.
I forget what it was called.
I guess
more or less that is the game.
Yeah, but you're supposed to get the other guy's feet wide enough to where he'll fall over, or he won't be able to stand up, and you win. That's the point of the game.
Okay.
But why? Like, you could accidentally amputate somebody's foot, and I don't think you really need to do that in the middle of warfare.
You're not aiming at their foot.
But you're probably going to hit it. Just saying. Especially when you're drunk.
I was about to say, especially if you play this after a couple of drinks.
Or you're a bad aim.
So the newbie rolls up. And
replace their buddy, which no soldier, you know, takes kindly to having their buddy replaced.
Oh, right.
That kind of depends. So my grandpa, when he went on Normandy, the second wave, he was the only guy in his company that survived World War II, who went on the beach. And what he said was basically every week they would just bring new guys in, so you had to get to know them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but in this instance, their buddy isn't dead, so I would understand them seeing him being replaced immediately, kind of like a nail in the coffin sort of thing. But I mean, you've got to do that because you can't just have your troops at half strength. You got to keep bolstering what you have.
I would guess also being in a grinder, where they're being used improperly, you know, like your infantry, your enlisted men should not know better how to use your unit than the officers should.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
bad leadership is just
the new guy. They show that he's a really good horse rider and a really good shot.
That's one of the guys. I think it's probably Taz that says it. But the funny thing about the Turkish, they don't sit still, and he just responds with "Neither do rabbits."
Yeah,
All right.
he's
Give a
not
little
wrong.
sass too. But I mean, especially looking back on this now, having finished the film, I didn't really think this at the time, but he very clearly has a very romanticized view of war. Because like right here, he's
Yeah.
talking about the food's not bad or whatever, and they said he said something like you don't expect good food in the war or whatever. They just laugh, go, this is good food. Wait till you get to the
Yeah.
field and you got a cracker that you can't break over your knee.
Wait till you've had maggoty bread.
Yeah.
Ugh.
There's good food in Australia.
There you go.
Oh, but remember, this guy grew up on a farm, so he would have great food, comparatively speaking, with all the fresh food and all
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this little back and forth is pretty good. He's getting
Yeah.
razzed for kind of being this city boy that's got this romanticized view of war, but he's had a brother that served, and I couldn't tell if he said he did or he died.
He died.
Okay, there was something lost in the accent there for me.
Yeah. Just a little subtle difference between those two. Australians have a lot of those words. They're
Yeah.
like, what did you say?
I mean, I kind of assumed that his brother had died based on the reaction from the other guys.
Yeah.
So similar to this guy's experience, the new guy's experience I want to see in this movie. There's a movie called Hacksaw Ridge about a World War II guy named Desmond Doss.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Pacifist.
good
This guy's
one.
basically a pacifist, the one coming into, even though he's a no. Desmond knew he was. This guy doesn't. And,
Yeah.
And just like they find a role for him, Desmond in World War II as a combat medic, which he has to force them to do. This guy, the Australians wisely take this guy who wants to serve but can't be a frontline trooper and put him with the medical unit. So
And he
yeah,
gets, he kind of gets a Dear John letter here.
Yeah, because he's had like a fiance for 3 years or whatever, because he's been gone for 3 years, so he hasn't been back to see her. And
Right.
She's moved on.
She's not only moved on, she's
Yep,
already
got
married
married
and
disappeared.
I have to assume that that's her picture in the background on the table next to his bed.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
They don't draw attention to it, but it's a nice touch.
that, by the way, what she did to him in the Italian American community of World War I, II era, if a woman did it to a guy who was overseas, she would be kicked out of the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was no, you know what I mean? There was like my grandpa and my grandma met as teenagers, married after the war, but they were together as teenagers. My grandmother's oldest sister and her husband married when they were 13. And they,
Wow.
well, they met when they were married when they were 14,
Wow.
something like that. I was really young. And they were married over 75 years before he died. So there was no thought of if your husband or boyfriend goes overseas, like you could break up when they come home, but you can't do it while they're there. It was not acceptable.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
that's not fair. That's really heartless, in my opinion, to do that to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these tents, there's no floor to the tent.
That was actually. I mean,
I don't think the regular soldiers.
guys who poached on soldiers' wives and girlfriends were literally considered poachers. You know, it was not a.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jacob. Those are basically just a tent over your head, nothing under you, and there's barely any room and 2 people per tent.
Right.
That's a standard troop thing. For on-the-go troops, you carry your tent and
Yeah.
either a single person tent or a 2-man tent, and you know.
I forget in this Do they say that those are emu or ostrich like feathers? I forget like what kind of feathers those are in their caps.
I don't think they said. I think they just said it.
No,
they
I
have a
don't think so.
plume in their hat.
Okay,
think they
because like
said
I
that.
feel like it's probably like if it's an emu feather, I understand why the emus revolted. Then they took our feathers in World War One. Well, now we're gonna do our revenge or whatnot.
Hey, R2.
Yeah, R2. The chat was very inappropriate early on.
Wow.
Maybe the AI picked up on those the couple of times we said those place names already.
So I just looked this up because I was curious. The average loss of sick horses and mules from the Sinai front, which is where they were, was 640 per week in 1916.
Wow.
640 horses per week.
Man. That's crazy.
There's a whole thing on Wikipedia. Horses that were transported in trainloads of 30 trucks, each holding 8 horses. Animals who died or were destroyed while in active service were buried 2 miles from the nearest camp, unless this wasn't practical.
That was a really cool shot. That undoing that det cord. Which it's not really det cord because they're not dealing with like C4. That's basically just TNT.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So this is all set up because they're moving the offensive from Gaza to Beersheba at this point, right? So like they're cutting off transportation as they're refocusing
the Turco-German army.
Right.
Yeah. There's it's kind of like, if I remember the map correctly, like if my hand is where they're advancing, like here's the front line, they're advancing this way. The row of towns that they want is kind of parallel to that, and the train comes in this way. Right?
Okay.
If I'm remembering the map correctly.
Yeah.
So by cutting this train off to supplies, which they can't supply the people ahead of them, the line of towns ahead of them. If I remember the map correctly.
Right. And there she blows.
So they had advanced to the point where they could keep the Turks, because that's actually a cavalry unit they're facing. You can tell by what the weapons are carrying.
Right.
They had advanced to the point where they couldn't protect the train line.
Right. And the Turks run away. Oh.
This is when he realizes that all the I can do this energy that he's got. He can't pull that trigger on a person.
And two, it's, shooting the person in the back, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ELS, you should know if it's something on Jacob's channel, you probably need to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
One of my older relatives who was in World War II said to me, "You killed your first couple guys before you even knew you hit anyone, because you were in the trenches or advancing up the beach or whatever, just firing en masse into groups. You had no idea. You couldn't aim through all
laying down suppressive fire.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really
something. And I did kind of think that they kind of understand him for not shooting. That was not the norm in this time period with soldiers. I mean, you're a coward, and you're labeled that.
Well, I think they're going through the notion of no one got killed yet, but because I think the mentality would be something like, none of us really want to kill anyone, but we're stuck here doing it. But this guy needs to get over this, and they're angry because he didn't get over it. But but I don't think anyone died yet that they know of, so they did not actively blaming him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're gonna either get themselves hurt because they're watching his back, or they're gonna get hurt because he's not watching theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's
You know,
unfortunately that's what warfare is. Like you gotta do things you wouldn't normally want to or be able to do.
Yeah.
in Hacksaw Ridge, Desmond Doss, this is a true story. He won a Congressional Medal of Honor. Never carried a gun, never shot anyone, never killed anyone, and he was called a coward by the own guys in his troops, even though he was saving their lives as a medic. Until there was a thing where they had to take a mountain or whatever. They all retreated off the mountain. He stayed behind and rescued dozens and dozens of guys with no weapons or nothing. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Including wounded Japanese soldiers.
Yeah.
So this is
So
where
here
they
we
get the
find
news.
out that their buddy, he got his wound went septic, so they had to amputate his leg, and it just got worse, and he died.
I wonder when they said that, the way they were saying that is, because there are guys this would happen to, like they were worried. My grandpa was severely wounded by artillery at the bridge at Remagen, lost like half of his intestines and his kneecap, and
Ooh.
they didn't expect him to live at all, but he lived 5 years, eventually came home, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that they said, that he didn't say it to me, but other people said, was they were about him killing himself over the wounds, So I always wondered, whenever I see this type of thing, and because Mash brought that up too, that soldiers who got disabled, they were worried they were going to kill themselves or the disability. And now I'm wondering if they were sort of passively saying, well, he died from his wounds is what we're putting on the paper. But what really happened is, you know what I mean?
I kind of thought that too, because after they received the news, one of the guys says, like, can you blame him? You saw after he got that letter, the life left his eyes.
Yeah.
From that moment, he no longer wanted to keep on going. So whether or not it was just he had lost the will to live and couldn't bounce back from major surgery, or if they had snuck some booze into him, maybe he found some way to use that to, complicate medication or whatever. But I did kind of get that feeling as well, that maybe there was more to the story than they were being told.
And I mean, like that, he lost his will to fight. Well, he lost his reason to fight. He was fighting for a girl back home, and
then he lost his leg, and so he's going to be disabled, and And this is 100 years ago, when disability meant like they didn't even have pensions. There was no, presumably whatever they call a Social Security in Australia, right? I don't think that existed yet. So you were basically living off whatever crappy job you could get, and handouts basically, in the church. Like it wasn't, like when my grandpa got out of World War II, he was disabled. Now he went to work, right? He worked his whole life until he physically couldn't in the 70s. But they gave him a Navy pension and an Army pension, even just because of disability, and so that's how he made by. But this would be before all that concept existed, it's disability was a killer in the old world,
Yeah.
So they're going to take Beersheba.
And Australia is a legitimately tough country to live in without modern technology. People need to remember that.
Yeah.
This guy was in Quigley Down Under. He had like a little cap, like a little beret he wore, if you've seen that movie.
Yeah, that's the Well of Abraham or something like that. Been there for basically ever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, someone's asking for Peter O'Toole in this movie. That's next week, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, this is weird. I mean, I guess it makes it easier to deal with the horses when they're all tied up, lined up. You can clean up their manure and feed them and all that in one area. But the German plane comes in and can just line right up with all the horses and shoot all the
But then
horses.
that was also a new thing. You know what I mean? Like they
aircraft in World War I was just starting to become more of a thing.
Like this is probably the only plane in all of the Sinai Peninsula. You know what I mean?
I mean, and the way they describe it right here is basically cut the horses loose, and the way they describe it later on is they're trained well enough that they can round them up like 5 or 10 minutes afterwards. So they just need them to not be in a line and be able to run.
Yep.
Right.
Of course, then you get the nice guy that just can't let 3 horses go, because I think what they're told is get your horse, cut the others loose. And he's riding around with three extra horses trying to save them all.
Yeah.
And he gets his bell rung.
Yeah, I'll show what happens here. And his hand messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point you just got to let go, buddy. Just let go of the horses.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. They just, here's a bandage for your head. Go back.
I just mentioned 640 horses per week. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
Also, I got to point out, I'm sure they've already had that exchange where he's asking why the other guy is called Scotty, and he's not Scottish. It's because he's Irish. And I made it that far into the film before I realized his accent was different, because I was having a hard time filtering Australian accents in my brain.
Yeah.
Well, this would have still been when a lot of British island people were still moving to Australia.
Right.
Thing he sees is the nurse.
The nurse.
I mean, if you're going to have a concussion and wake up in a hospital, there are worse things to wake up to.
Yeah. Like your leg getting cut off.
Or parts of your body all over different places.
Yeah.
Which would have been a common occurrence at this time.
And that's also not a bad place to recuperate.
Could be a whole heck of a lot worse.
A little special recuperation therapy needed. Bow chicka wow wow.
I gotta say, I kind of sympathize with this dude right here.
He tells her why he didn't want to go back. Go ahead, Beard.
Oh, I was gonna say, I sympathize with that line he just throws in there at the end. Like, I don't even have the courage to ask you out. Just be like, yeah, it sounds like something that I would just slide into a conversation someplace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then suddenly his recovery, rapidly improved.
I wonder why.
I got the impression,
Cannot confirm or deny.
The battle is that there's a lot of time skipping in this movie. You know what I mean? Like the first, let's say 75%, even though it seems like it's very short, it's actually like a couple of months or more,
Right.
And then
because everything was just a state
there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's testing another
so
well.
Their head. Yeah.
And then
Funny, he brings the one guy who won't shoot.
Yeah. But they spot a
Yeah.
seemingly British officer surrounded by seemingly Turkish troops, and they don't really know how to handle this.
So we find out he's an intelligence officer for the new commander. And that's a thing. It's done differently in the modern context, but that various levels of command having assigned intelligence officers and civilian intelligence troopers, depending on the type of troop, is a thing, and they do go ahead of the unit and gather intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays it's a lot
Right.
more electronic, and you have people on the ground who are there well ahead of time, and it's kind of convoluted. But this was a thing for the longest time that you'd have like if you were a general, you have a colonel who's your intelligence guy, a colonel who's your logistics guy, you know.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I
And
like
of course,
this exchange.
they've just seen him with a bunch of Bedouins, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to trust but verify. We're going to take his gun." And
I like how he says,
he
like, I
almost
didn't expect
drops
to find you out here by yourself. I could say the same for you. Thing is, I'm not by myself. I've got a guy who won't shoot.
Yeah, right.
Of course, he doesn't know that
Yeah,
now.
right. But this guy's probably thinking, "Oh, that guy's really good. If he didn't shoot me."
He definitely gives him a
'Cause he,
look like he's thinking more than just the current obvious situation.
Yeah.
Now they belabor this point in the movie for some stupid reason. They would find out pretty quickly who he was. You know, like they wouldn't even what they're doing
Yeah.
here with some tension. They wouldn't even be this degree of tension. It would, even back then, they would get a communication, whether it's a runner or I'm assuming they had some primitive radio or something. And so, yep, this guy's legit. Let him go. You know, I think they'd belabor. But again, that could be the sort of like lack of cohesive time transmission we're getting from this movie. You know what I mean?
I guess you could also
Right.
maybe cut him a little bit of slack since he's an intelligence officer. Maybe tracking him down would not be as easy as some of the other kind of just standard guys.
Well, even if they don't know that, like the change of command is coming, which is what he says, his identity as a recognized officer would be known. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the arrival of the British commander who's not stupid.
No.
The guy that actually knows what's up.
Hey, Teresa.
Hello, hello. I like the reintroduction.
Yeah. So they're going to start hitting the Lighthorsemen's what is it? I can't think. Patrols have been getting, ambushed by the cavalry or the Bedouins. So they set a trap for these cavalry guys.
And some of the lingo here kind of messed with my head because I'll put one troop inside the ruins. Thought you're going to put one guy inside there, and then I was like, oh, one troop of. Never mind.
I also think the depiction of how this ambush happened was not accurate to real life. It just seems like they would have noticed a whole bunch of dudes just standing in the middle of a dilapidated building from when it had high ground advantage and all that.
Yeah. I mean, especially the kind of the other troops that are on the ridge line, they wouldn't have been silhouetted against the sky like that.
Like that guy looking through the hole is the one guy who's hiding. You know what I mean? It's like
surprise. Eventually it would come out that this dude is not shooting when he's not having to requisition any more ammo.
Well, See,
Yeah.
kind of what would happen, told us by another relative, is you would reach over the gun and just pull his trigger forward to get him to start to firing. Because once you start to fire, you instinctively do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other troops comes back and gets with his injured buddy, and it looks like they're just going to let him go, and then they just light him up.
Yeah, he almost gets himself killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's busy worried about this injured guy. Is that his commanding officer that saved his butt this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time you could understand getting, freeze up your first time in combat and you're having to shoot at people. That's kind of understandable, but it continues. He just can't pull the trigger.
Yeah, there's you could see a difference between shooting a man in the back that's running away versus somebody who's actively attacking you. That's when you realize that it's more than just kind of I don't want to be a bad guy thing. That's something that a lot of people just don't have in them, and that's not a bad thing. We need people that don't have that in them. Oh, we're coming up on the thing.
The scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip that part.
I forgot
about that. But I like how this was funny though. This first bit.
Yeah, it's like I know this is a rest camp, but there'd be some sort of military discipline. No shorts.
No shorts.
And there was only
okay,
that
I'll pass the order along. No shorts. Yeah.
Yeah, this was like straight out of a comedy. It did feel a little bit out of place, but I love it.
Yeah.
I'll pass the word along to the men.
But they're wearing boots, though.
Yeah, I know. They put their boots on.
Okay. There's no pants, though. I won't show it, people. I won't show the moons, but they're not wearing any pants.
Nope. Just
and then they have a
buttocks.
beach scene.
Yeah, and if you think the
the
volleyball scene in Top Gun is a certain way, a whole troop of dudes naked riding horses along the beach and in the water. I didn't have that on my bingo card for today or this year.
No, me neither.
You need to revise that bingo card. So
they're naked there riding horses.
That's gotta be. I'm sorry, I'm not a dude, but like that's gotta be painful. Why would you do that?
I know.
You're gonna if you do that, you better hope that the water is ice cold and everything is basically retreated to the inside, because otherwise you're gonna end up landing on something.
Yeah.
Like I'm a woman and I wouldn't do that. Like I'm not gonna. No, that's painful.
This was one of those moments that just came out of nowhere. In this
like
movie.
the football scene.
Like, I mean, there is a lot of this film that is based on reality and true story. And I kind of wonder if this didn't actually happen.
It probably did.
Might have.
Or maybe naked horseback riding is a thing in Australia. We just don't know it.
I'm gonna have to ask Lethal and Mazza. Be like, Mazza, in your free time, do you go out horseback riding naked?
Do you dive on today, mate?
When you go have a shrimp on the bobby, do you ride horses naked?
I'm sure Lethal probably will say yes. How did you know?
A whole bunch of beer commercials riding around naked. Yeah.
Oh man.
So the things we talk about on Jacob's stream.
So these guys can tell that their new buddy can't shoot people, and
Yeah.
they're like, we got to tell him. So this was a lot different than what you would think at this time period. I mean, it was a court-martialing offense to show cowardice in
Mhm.
combat.
And I mean, they've bonded enough that you can tell they don't want to report him for that, so they give him an out.
Right.
Well, he hasn't demonstrated cowardice. No one's died yet because of it. You know, like so. This is why they can smartly move him over to the medical division, because and just put another guy in there.
I mean, I guess if they didn't like him, they could argue that he wasn't following orders because he was just standing around, not taking out the enemy. But that's nitpicking. But yeah, they give him an out where it's a totally different, and one would argue requires more bravery because you're charging into the very fresh aftermath where combat is still happening without a weapon.
Yeah. Against an enemy, I point out, doesn't care if you're wearing a red cross or not.
Right.
So this guy's the head of the mounted stretcher men or something.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on exactly what his role was, but he's clearly an officer, and he even says that he doesn't think that he could shoot anybody, but because he's rose up in the ranks outside of war, he's never had to, and now he's in a position where he's never going to need to. It was a little thing, but I kind of liked that they saved him the perceived indignity of having to turn in his weapon. Because he says, I guess I should take this back to the armorer, and they just said, no, we'll hold on to that for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I like this part here. They were trying to make the enemy believe that they're attacking Gaza, right? Mm-hmm. And not
that any action against Beersheba is just a feint.
Yeah.
And a distraction. And I do like how kind of weaselly that guy gets. It's fun. Because isn't that where he asks, like, he's going to need somebody that is like to escort him, that's prone to rumor?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this too, he's like, could I get your signature? And they're like, okay.
Yeah, Dave there's thinking he's hitting on his girl, and he's really just wants to see her penmanship.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing it on purpose, though, because there's people watching them at all times, like spies or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to come out and say, could you write me a letter to plant to make somebody believe we're attacking somewhere? No.
I like this.
She writes him a letter.
He starts dictating the letter, and then he realizes, no, this is not going to sound right. It's like, I need her to get into this kind of emotional headspace and write it like it's real, not like it's some officer trying to pretend. And they do play it off a little bit like it's still kind of like he might be hitting on her too. He's like, you write to me or whoever. I mean, he's not obviously, but yeah, he's.
Oh, later R2. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he took off a little while ago. Yeah, but I mean, she gets into it enough to realize that, she would be responding to a telegram, and he tells her how long it would have taken to get to her.
She could have even gotten a tear on it to make it even more realistic.
I kind of wonder because it does show her a tear dripping down her face. I thought he might have was going to comment on like a tear smudge or something.
Is that a tear stain, my dear? Well, no. That is unacceptable. We don't need it that authentic.
And it's funny, he's embarrassed almost too. It's funny.
Yeah, because it's like I don't know, maybe he feels like he's peeked into her life, even though it's not her life that's written in that letter. It's completely fictionalized, but it's an intimate message still.
Yeah. I like this part. He's like, yeah, I need a certain kind of guy. I need somebody who knows the area, can protect, can fend for himself and me, and is prone to gossip.
Wouldn't shoot to save me.
Yeah. I know just the guy. I don't remember the name of the operation, but this reminded me a lot of the World War II operation where they created a fictional soldier and dropped the body off the coast of like Spain or something like that, and leading up to D-Day.
Yeah.
Well, there was an episode of MASH where they made up a fictional soldier, Captain something or other, and then Margaret fell in love with him. like he was kind of like writing letters to everyone or whatever, and then they had him killed in combat or something like that.
Yeah, in making this fiction for this World War II operation, the guy that came up with it worked with Ian Fleming of James Bond, and this guy went out and dated somebody in his office, even though he was married, so that he could create this fictional relationship between this fictional soldier and this other person, and ended up falling in love and cheating on his wife with this person. So yeah, looks like MASH true from that.
I love this. Yeah, I love this part. He's like, "Sir, why are we out here?" He's like, "Oh, we're looking for we don't know how this bird migrates out here." He plays it up like he's just some stupid British officer looking for birds.
Like, yeah, we know that we see them fly north in the spring, in the autumn or whatever, but we don't see them return in the spring.
That's probably his cover for being in the area as a British bird expert,
right?
Which I think the character legitimately is. In other words, I remember looking this up, that after the war he becomes known as a bird expert, like something like that.
Yeah, like renowned bird expert or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just playing up the pompous British officer.
It actually says it at the end of this.
The raccoon.
I do like that stick though. Yeah. That he's got there.
That's when you gotta smack somebody and get them in the line, or you just want to kill a small creature like a raccoon.
Yeah.
And he's just annoyed to be there because they're in enemy territory. They're much further east than they should be, and now he's got this pompous little dandy of a British officer that wants to take a break and eat a sandwich. Of course, he's being played the entire time.
Yeah.
I was confused at first why he got some of the horse's blood here, but it makes sense. It's to make it seem like he was wounded later.
Well, also, the horses would smell the horse blood there and act antsy, which would alert the enemy troopers or something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't think of that.
That's a good point.
They're like, there's a dead horse here, buddy.
Yeah, and he just turns around and starts shooting, and that's just annoying the dude because he just wants to get out of there.
I love when he drops the rifle. He's like, "Oh dear."
Yeah, he drops it very unconvincingly, and then his pouch slips off his shoulder when he's trying to retrieve it. Oh no!
Like, oh dear.
Silly me.
And he's like, leave it. Leave it. I have to say that black horse is a pretty horse.
Yeah.
Black Horse Boy saying the White House, like, you're a writer, an idiot too. You know, like
This I like the back and forth between these guys because
this has to be one of the most prominent scenes with two actors with noses that prominent in one scene, like that.
Yeah.
Like the Battle of the Nose Bridge, you know.
Well, you got the German officers looking at the handwritten note and just clearly buying into everything, but then the Turkish officer's like, I'm still gonna wire everything to explode. So just in case you're wrong, they get nothing.
Which is pretty good tactics there.
Yeah. And I got that uniform just looks so warm for that area.
Nose to nose combat.
Yeah, it does. It does. Nose to nose combat.
Flaring.
Point blank range. So yeah, here we go. They're planning the attack. So all this has to happen in like one day.
Yeah, they have to get it because they're out of water.
I forget how many liters of water that each soldier has for 30 hours or 33 hours.
I think you said like 1
and
liter
their horses
per
no
soldier.
water.
Yeah. I mean, if they're successful, their horses will have been without water for like 36 hours
in the desert.
Yeah. And if they fail, it's the biggest disaster. It's a military disaster.
Mm-hmm. I got to say, the mustache game in this movie is strong.
It is. The mustache is strong with this one.
So you got what?
So this guy's got a wife,
writing a letter to his wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long has it been that he hadn't written.
Yeah.
And that's usually a bad sign in a TV show movie. When you're writing a letter to your wife and you're a soldier, it's a bad sign.
Yep.
So basically, if I remember correctly, the light or the light horsemen here, they're basically just told to go around the far side and sit and wait just in case we need you. But it seemed, at least to me, that the initial assault was presumed to be good enough that they weren't going to be needed.
Well, that's why I think the premise was that the light horse saved the day, as it were, with that one commander knew what they would do to use them. Mm-hmm. That the assault by what they thought would take the city failed, and that because the light horseman had been able to use their mobility on the lighter defensive side, that one British commander who was like, I know what to do with these guys, understood they see it play out where you have to set back then, especially you had to set your range by a very unadjustable mechanic on all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So they're in like a gully and stirring up a bunch of dust, and they just think that they're just a few guys running around with horses causing all this dust to make it look like there's a bigger force there.
Well, you mean they didn't have an army of children with like steam makers leading them up through the battle?
Yeah.
It is some great shots.
Yeah. And that's it. That's not a very big town.
No, it's basically a watering hole.
Well, I think the town, like I think what they're showing us, again, is not reflective of how it would have been fortified. You know what I mean? Like they have the shot of the town, but I don't think they took the time to build out the trenches and all the other stuff that would have been there in the real battle. You know, so you get when they did do that was when they still had the light horsemen themselves involved in the fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
They made one trench with like one set of guys firing and one set of cannon. When that would have been, I don't know, a couple kilometers long. You know, with spacing and stuff like that. And obviously, we would see that on the map at this scale if those trenches and embankments were there already. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. A din of what does Obi-Wan say?
But that's a whole area from
the hive of scum and villainy.
Is a fortified, not that's a giant wall, but there's fortifications that along the whole. You can't just ride between them and get behind the line. That's why I have to go at one end to the other, Gaza or Beersheba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so day breaks, the siege starts.
Cry havoc, and let's set the dogs of war.
We don't have those, but we have horses.
Once more into the breach, dear friends.
Oh no. Not the raccoons again. Yeah, there's some time jumping some subtle time jumping here that happens because the siege starts. German guy still like, nah, it's nothing. Just some scouts running around making clouds of dust. It's you're worrying about nothing. And meanwhile, these guys are just waiting in a ditch.
Yeah.
Whoa, was that a phallic symbol behind them? Go back one.
What?
Was someone having too much fun on the set that day?
Somebody was missing the horse riding scene.
It's in like multiple scenes too.
I think you've been scarred by the naked horse riding scene.
Probably. Just that's all you can see now.
That's the intelligence report of naked horse riding scene. They're like, we must get those Australians who did the naked horse riding. Only they can breach the defenses of the Turks.
Only they can, because apparently they have balls of steel.
This still looks just really out of place to me. I know it's practical for the time, but just set up a folding table with a pair of binoculars and just command everything from out in the open.
Did you ever read about the early battles of the Civil War where people would set up on over hills next door, like set up picnic tables to watch the fight?
Oh man, no.
Yeah. Like the families of some of the soldiers would be there just watching the fight go on, like eating food and having a party.
Wow.
So most civilian observers, like from towns nearby, say, "Oh, there's a big battle going on 2 hills over. Let's have a party above them." You know.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a fun day, doesn't it?
Of course.
I don't think they show it, but there still would be, like now in the modern era, it's actually part of the military, but the camp followers would still be there at this time period. The people who mend their clothes, who sell them goods and stuff like that, which are mostly civilians, and some provide female services and things like that. So that's all camp, like what they call camp followers back then. I think in the modern era, it's all that's blocked, and there's logistic trains for all that now, except for the female comfort part.
That horse is really rude. He just spilled half of his water.
He's probably saying to the horse, "My rider likes me."
I mean, obviously, horses, especially during World War One, they were way more expendable than. I mean, they had to be. They were huge targets, but it didn't mean that these guys didn't get attached to their horses.
I want to say this in the
No.
most polite way possible. I like how horses look. I respect them as service animals, but horses are giant rats. I mean, any animal that breeds like that is meant to be used and eaten by by predators. Deer, horses, you know, the more the animal breeds, the more it's designed by nature to be a prey animal. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they were bred to be that too. You know,
and that even applies to like canines. Like the more the animal has larger litters, it's because they get eaten by bigger predators. You know,
I like this. Yeah, there's 50,000 troops out there, and I only have 8,000. And now he's sweating.
Well,
but the thing is, if they didn't have the light horsemen in the right position and used properly, they still would have held out because of their defenses.
Right.
Yeah. And this guy wins the nose contest.
Look at the other guy. The most beaky noses possible for these scenes.
Yeah, so basically the entire day is drone on, and what they thought they might accomplish in this amount of time, they've done virtually nothing. Now time for
like with this British guys, like I would. We'll take my men in, and they're like, no.
What he says something along one of the lines that we should use my cavalry because these guys they're just like infantry. And then with the hat on with the feather, he goes something we've been reminded of very frequently or something along those lines. Yeah, we got it. Shut up.
And here they go. I just think if Zach's reviews this movie, they'll have another beach scene to discuss.
The beach scenes are always the best. I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't really. You kind of get an idea for the distance based on the rangefinder from the troops that they're charging up on. But this had to have been a couple of miles.
I have some thoughts about that, right? So you know that they're talking about, I believe it's 2,500 meters or something when they first opened fire on them. But if you look at the distances involved, that was not 2,500 meters. You know what I mean? So we're getting the right distances from the verbal references, but I think when they were filming the charge, they messed up the visual scale of it a little bit, you know?
No, I mean, they probably scaled it down just for logistics purposes, but you also lose some of that based on focal length of
just
lens
like
you're
right
using.
there for you to see the 3 lines of horses there. There's like at least 200 meters between the one closest to us and the one furthest from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So probably more than 200 meters because of the fall off with distance effect, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And that's not 800 men either.
No.
I mean, that's maybe 150, 200 maybe.
At least.
Yeah. But still impressive to get that many riders for a movie, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Just the logistics of having the horses on set.
Well, they're not showing the remounts. There'd be a huge amount of remounts just waiting behind them.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Nope.
And look, they always use the minaret for.
So go back to that one scene.
Movements.
One scene back
Here.
Yeah. So you can see the town up there, right? That is at least, I'm going to say, 3 to 4, maybe more kilometers at least, right?
Right.
Yeah, this was a pretty rough. This would be a pretty rough thing to ride through. I mean, you got to
Well, no, not.
get under their artillery before
There's
they.
not a lot of density to fire though. Like if this were Europe, there would be
Yeah.
no space between the cannons. You know what I mean? They couldn't. This is probably there's literally probably like 10 cannons firing all those guys. You know, so you're getting cluster bombed, and as they spread out, you know, like they're going to break apart. Like they're going to spread out. I mean, I'm fairly sure the director told them, "Okay, you guys who have the odd numbers, right ahead," type of thing. You know, to make it look how it would have been. You know, because they're not stupid. These would have been trained enough because they have to transport into battle that if they're facing fire like that, they spread out to minimize it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just being fast moving like they are, once they initiate their proper charge, that is a lot of elevation corrections for large guns to do rapidly.
Right.
try
And
to
at
keep
that
up
point in
with them.
time,
Yeah.
they didn't have quite as an efficient way to adjust as they do nowadays.
Oh,
It would have been
correct.
a lot of manual
Which is-
moving and adjusting.
Yeah, which is part of the point with the mounted. What are they called? Infantry. They use the horses to get past the artillery, to get under the artillery
Mhm.
quickly, and then they're able to fight. Huh?
To bridge the distance before they can be cut down.
Right.
Right.
You see how they're starting to disperse and spread out? Although there should be more
Yeah.
of them, I point out, Jacob.
Yeah.
You know, I never really thought about it too much, but the rangefinder the guy's using is basically what it looks like to me. It's like binoculars, or like two periscopes that put your viewpoint way out, separate, like to the sides of your head. But I guess based on the angle that you focus those to obtain a clear image of your subject, that's how it would calculate the range. But I've never really thought about that too much because I've never actually seen one of those devices in use.
I don't know the specifics of how they
Yeah,
did it. They'll
with
probably
those-
triangulate based on multiple observations.
Mm.
Yeah, the guy with the binoculars, if it was Wednesday, he could see both Sundays.
Now, if you see how spread out there, so
And
only a
some
couple
too, they-
guys being hit.
Yeah, there we go.
Like if this were in Europe, there would be every one of them would be hit by machine gun fire and bombed at this point.
Right.
Right.
Plus, there'd be like I'm assuming I don't remember when minefields became a thing, but there would have been some sort of ground-based anti-personnel things going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they use their bayonets too to when they get in close.
I think it was towards the latter years of the war that they would have started to use mines in that fashion.
Hell, though, in Europe,
He
they
just
so
came-
one of them,
mustard gas clouds out of them.
He just came across
the guy
Taz.
wrote the letter. He
Not
wrote
only did he write the letter, he gave it to his buddy to deliver.
Yeah.
Might as well put on a red shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of short amongst all the other charging. But when he gets killed and falls off his horse just keeps on charging in, and then
Mm-hmm.
his buddy who's with him kind of like picks up speed to keep up with the horse, kind of like riding in spirit.
Yeah.
And now this impressed me, by the way, both about the real guy and the movie, that he charged in but remained a medic.
Yeah,
He didn't go in just
Yeah.
like gunning guys down.
I mean, I half expected him to like tear off his medic band.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is when the real danger comes down. Not so much the artillery; it's just the line of death coming out of that thing.
I mean, it's pretty accurate too how they show the guy and gets hit multiple times. I mean, those
Yeah.
There's not
things
enough
were
machine gun
very
fire.
accurate.
Like to stop what's happening.
Um,
There's not enough machine gun fire. You know,
Right.
yeah.
because we're seeing 150 guys like Jacob said, but there's like way more than that in the actual. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though those early machine guns were water cooled, they'd still overheat, and you'd have to
Yeah.
either switch out a barrel or just wait for it to cool down. So you could only fire them so much. So if they only had so many guns, they couldn't rely on backups.
That is why no matter the machinery, it is the brain and the strategy that will always win in the end.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know how much people know about this gun, but the barrel is in the middle of this tube, and it's got water around the barrel. But still, it gets so hot that water's boiling hot.
And at this point, the defenses are broken. There's no way they're stopping what's coming. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bolt actions can only fire so fast. Oh, I just want to say, to be an extra in that trench and be told, "Hey, we're gonna jump half a dozen horses over your head." Okay.
Yeah.
Then a bunch of Australian guys can jump on top of you after that.
Yeah.
But they're not naked, right? It's like
cover your eyes. It's okay. They're wearing pants this time.
Pants.
Oh.
Yeah, hand-to-hand combat or gun-to-gun combat. Those old bolt actions.
I'm surviving.
My nose has won. Yeah. I'm leaving.
Yeah, to hell with you.
I think specifically it says like the only sensible thing, surviving. Right.
Not like you or any of the men left here.
And there's the guy with one line who's had more of a career than anybody else after this.
Oh yeah, what's his face? Yep. He does even have a name. Look at it. He doesn't even have a character name in this. He's Turkish Demolition Soldier, played by Steve Bastoni, who had the largest career of anyone in this movie that we can.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, nothing goes off, and they assume that like the shelling that they've endured for the last day has shook some stuff loose.
Yeah. Grenade.
He catches a Clint Eastwood round, one on the shoulder.
Yeah, he almost uses the gun here, though.
I thought he was.
I was impressed by both the character of the real guy and by the way they depicted him.
Yeah.
I like to think that he would have if he had to.
Horse.
I mean, I'm sure this is accurate, but it's something I've never really considered, that in a siege like this, you have both areas where you're rounding up prisoners in areas that are still actively under siege. That it's just in almost every other movie, once they run in, they take control, everything's now under control. The end. You don't have to continue fighting or have a dude pull a grenade.
Yeah.
Hey, he's got to save him. He's got the letter. At least I think that's the one that has the letter.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That, by the way, is how you live through a grenade. You get low and wide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this guy just kind of happens upon the wire.
Yeah. These things start going off and he just falls down and it's like, oh, hey, look at this.
There's a wire.
I wonder where it leads.
I mean, you've seen enough explosives go off that it would make kind of sense to deduce that. It basically just says, just give me an excuse to shoot you in the head.
And that's the same gun Han Solo uses right there.
Yep. Just minus a useless giant scope.
Yeah. That's probably backwards.
Yeah.
And there it is.
I thought this was kind of, I don't know if the character took it, but I kind of saw him seeing that as an insult, that the Australians came in, saved the day, and they raised the UK flag.
Well, they're part of the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know, but in the camp, they have both flags. So in their camps, both flags are flying. So they obviously have some sort of individual identity between the soldiers.
You're going to raise the king's flag, which is the UK flag, first above all other. That's to honor the king, type of thing.
Yeah.
That means something to those in monarchies, not to us per se, but
Yeah, my brain can't handle that. It's not beard of monarchy.
Yeah. You got to just raise a giant beard.
Yeah, this is that line where he says something along the lines, we only lost 30 troops, or luckily we only lost 30, not if you're one of them.
Or one of the 8,000 horses who just died.
Yeah.
And they're all collapsing. After that match, they're all collapsing from lack of water because they just died on running out.
Yeah, that's a long charge to ask of a horse that's been dehydrated for almost 2 full days.
Yeah. So she's looking for her man.
I know it's not quite the same. Whenever I see these picture outfits, I keep thinking of Sally Field from The Flying Nun.
I see. Before I remembered, for this text came up, and I was reminded that this is based on a real story. When she read his tag, and he said, "What does it say? They won't tell me." And she says, "It says means we're not losing you." I half expected that to be her lying to him, but then this text
I did too.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, the people they're based off of got married and lived happily ever after." Oh, okay. I've been spoiled by melodramatic Hollywood crap.
Right?
My favorite thing where they do this at the end in the credits, right?
And this guy went on to be a
bird expert in the Middle East.
Expert on birds.
Not want you to say.
Middle East.
But so these
this guy went on to be a.
Sorry,
I'm breaking up bad.
Oh,
sorry.
I was going to say.
It's on
so
my
these
end.
notes on the credit. The first movie that comes from whenever I see them is Animal House.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah.
When it shows the fate of all of them, Senator John Blutarsky and Mrs. Blutarsky. I was like,
Nice. I like that ride by.
I wonder if they went back for these bodies after the war. Because it's a kind of tradition to bury soldiers where they die. In a country like this where they might not respect the graves, I wonder if they went back for them.
Look, no horses.
I kind of doubt the injured part, considering 3 of them were drinking out of a fountain that exploded. I mean, not injured badly.
Of course,
okay.
Cut. Get the
or
stunt guys in
tug
a horse
legs
costume.
out from under one of them.
Yeah. I actually saw while we were during a break with the raccoon battle before we got started, like the day after, after the final day's filming for this movie, John Blake was injured in like a car accident and suffered like brain damage and never acted again. Dang,
Wow.
dude.
Gosh. I did not know that. But see, like, so, yeah, I don't always like look up this information about like actual actors and stuff. I'm just like, oh, they did a good job. They did a good job. They did a bad job. That's what I care about.
See, I look up things when I'm going to be on a panel with Matt because I know he's already going to know everything. So I have to try to at least know a couple of things.
Well, see, no, I just go, they did good job. They did bad job.
The only ones I recognize as actors was Shane Briant, who played the guy from Paul something from the Captain Conan's Vampire Hunter. He's in several Hammer. I recognized right away. I said, "Oh, he's from Hammer film." That's when I knew that, right? And then the other guy who played Trevor in Baywatch, him I picked up on him for two. Oh, that's Trevor, you know. But as it turns out, Turkish Demolition Soldier number one, Steve Bastoni, is far and away the most accomplished actor. That's how, like, in like what was it, the Deadly Mantis, Scientist number 6 is Clint Eastwood. It's like his second role ever, and like he has six uncredited roles in like 1 year, and one of them is the Deadly Mantis, the giant praying mantis that attacks, and you just see him walking under a microscope, and it's Clint Eastwood, and he's the most famous guy in the whole movie forever. Or in the movie Tarantula, people don't know this. I think it's his second credited role. Clint Eastwood plays the pilot in the plane that napalmed the tarantula, the giant tarantula. You know, and he's the most famous guy in the whole film. You know, it's like, someone saw the Deadly Mantis. That's so cool. Yeah. Now the question is, did you see it before Mystery Science Theater 3000 riffed it? That gives you A-level sci-fi nerd credits.
Yeah. So that was that movie. What any last thoughts on it?
It's a good movie. It's one of those that I feel like in our day and age, like World War I movies are not as popular as World War II movies. It could be that it's like closer in age to us, but like I feel like so many technological changes and advancements like happened just in between those two wars, and it's cool to see like World War I into World War II, just the technology and just the different strategic warfare types that was going on then. And it's not even 100 years different from each other. Like it's crazy to think of how like quickly
20 years
we get the glut of World War II films because the World War II generation and their boomer kids were the ones who were most influenced by World War II, and they made all the World War II films. And same thing with Vietnam. So World War II and Vietnam films amassed. Yeah. Very few Korean War films and World War I films. You know, what came out recently? 1917 was a good World War I film for a couple of years. There was another one.
War Horse was a recent one, I think.
I haven't seen that one, but I know 1917 was a couple years ago. Was there another one that came out like right after that? I don't remember offhand, but I remember 1917 because it was like a.
Well, there was also a lot more footage from World War II than World War I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And too, communication was faster, even just that 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been part of some of it.
You know, like for the last 20 years, we get a lot of Gulf War related movies now, in Afghanistan and all that.
Yeah.
I think the whole generation of filmmakers, that's their war, you know, all these conflicts in the Middle East and Africa.
I think it was a good watch.
Another,
Like I said, like the entry is kind of a little bit, or the first third is kind of disjointed because it does little time skips here and there, but it doesn't really kind of make it clear. There's no
right.
real good way to show the seasons passing in an area that doesn't,
A
at
desert.
least to my knowledge, kind of vary much across the time.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow kind of what you would expect from modern war movies. It definitely, if you like kind of the classic older war movies, this is definitely gonna be more in your wheelhouse. But it's worth a watch. I enjoyed it.
I wonder
Yeah.
because
You know,
Bill, when you are looking these actors over, a bunch of them were in a lot of those popular Australian TV shows. I wonder if they marketed this movie because it had these 4 actors from all those TV shows in it, rather than, and that's why it was called the Lighthorsemen, rather than making it the Battle of Beersheba, which would market the battle itself. You know what I mean? Because I said at the beginning, if they called it Battle of Beersheba, it would have made more sense that we were seeing the segments leading into the battle. Like,
Mhm.
That might have been maybe a wiser idea for localization, but I kind of get the feeling that the idea of the Light Horsemen being this kind of very Australian thing, if to appeal to an
yeah,
Australian audience, that was probably the best title they could have come up with.
oh, no, I
But
know,
outside of the cultures
Yeah.
that are familiar with that band of troops, yeah, I could see where naming it something different might have been a little bit better for marketing.
well, like I said, I wonder if because these actors who played those 4 guys all seem to be very popular actors in Australia at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So much so that I want to try to get 1 or 2 of those TV shows that they were in. One called Hunter from the '60s was really interesting. It's a spy show, on a James Bond and the Man from U.N.C.L.E. type of show. So I want to try to hunt that down. But it's just interesting because obviously what was I been like 8 years old when this was made, so probably Beard, you're similar type of thing. You know, um, Mando, did you exist yet when this was made?
When did this come out? 87?
87.
Oh, 87?
I was born in 93, so no, I was not even a twinkle
4.
in my mother's eye.
I was 1 year old.
Yeah, so it would have. It's interesting, You're around my age. I guess I'm 50, so I'm assuming you're around there.
I would have been 4 when this came out. So
Yeah, so you and I would have seen like
I'm
real
the baby on the panel.
you are young enough to be some of our children.
Oh no!
When I was in funny side story, I used to play World of Warcraft a lot, and a lot of us in the guild were older people who have been in the guild for 15 years now. So we have new kids come in. This little kid, Rhonda, who now is still in the guild, she's in her 20s. I used to play a game called "What Do I Have Today That's Older Than You, Rhonda?" And I just randomly drop my oh, look, here's a pencil I've had since before you. Literally, I throw it on the camera, Or I'd say, oh, look, here's a notebook I have only halfway filled that I started 2 years before you were born.
Yeah.
It was funny because she was 12, and I was like, "This is there are a lot of parents in our guild, so a lot of kids came up, through the ranks." But the age stuff. Like we grew up in the early '80s, right, Beard? So
Yeah.
the vibe of it with I wonder what it was like in Australia, because we're American, obviously, and I wonder what the Australians were going through with the war stuff back then. Because for us, it would have been like I was learning World War II from my grandparents and Vietnam from my parents and my parents' generation and all that. I wonder what the Australians would have been talking about in that regard.
Yeah,
There were a bunch of World War One
something.
film in this period that the Australians made, so I'm guessing that something big was going on in World War One.
Yeah, I did notice a little bit earlier when I was looking on the wiki of something called the Australian New Wave, and it was an era of kind of popularity of Australian cinema that's like 70s to 80s, and a lot of it kind of focused on war stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if it was anything very specific, but
I'm looking at that now. I know I've seen Breaker Morant. I've heard of Gallipoli. I don't remember watching it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah.
And I know about Anzacs. At some point or another, I've watched every military TV series ever. So, I should hunt it down and try to watch it again. Oh, look, yeah, I just noticed. So they used some of this in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, which is better than what Sweeney filmed.
Yeah, it was. Well, let's go around the horn and plug our stuff.
Around the horn, mate.
Beard, what do you got?
Oh, let's see here. Thursday this week, I'll be over with Roman for the movie The Black Hole, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
That'll be a first watch for me, so I'll be watching that next, probably tomorrow. Saturday, after the weekend harder. That'll be going on Saturday evening. And then Sunday, I'm going to be over on Star Trek Engage with Samuel the Infamous and Ryan Legion Games, etc. to watch and talk a little bit of classic Star Trek and engage in just a little bit of degeneracy. Not much, just a little bit.
And it's going to be my fault, obviously.
I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them they've got an out.
Mando, what do you got?
So these next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit on the crazy side because, as some of you know, I before the Christmas holidays got into a little bit of a fender bender. So I've been dealing with insurance stuff and all of the things that involve with all of that, and so yeah, my life is just a little crazy right now, especially being without a vehicle. So I'll be on with Roman. I might be streaming tomorrow. I think I will be hanging out with Horny Alf this Sunday, this Sunday evening. So yeah, we will see what happens. I hope I get a vehicle soon because I hate having to ask people for rides. It's very it's very humbling for me.
Yeah.
I guess you're up, Matt.
The raccoons may have attacked.
You may or may not find footage of her trying to avoid hitting naked Australian men on horseback with our car, which was the cause of the accident. You may or may not find it. I don't know. I'm just saying you may or may not find it. Yeah. So what do I got? I'm reviewing Reacher, which is great. I'm reviewing Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which is really called Monarch Legacy of Failed TV Show.
Oh yes,
it's horrible. Horrible waste of time.
It is.
I got my episode 5 of the Yu Hakusho live action, which is surprisingly good. I'll have that up in the next day or two.
Oh, really? Okay.
If you've never read the manga or seen the anime, this will let you know if you watch this and you find it interesting, then you might want to go read the manga or watch the anime.
I watched the anime back in the day when it ran on Cartoon Network.
Yeah. So.
I love Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah.
I'm watching it right now for the first time.
And if you are a Naruto fan, this is one of those. Yu Hakusho is one of the things you should watch, which is an influence on Naruto.
Okay.
Well, that's where he got Kurama from.
Yeah, the redheaded dude.
Kurama, the Fox Prince is a source of name and influence for Kurama the Nine-Tailed Fox.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What else I got going on? Sharp. I got my Blu-rays of Sharp all digitized, so I'm watching them now. I'm going to watch the third one and get my review up for that soon. I'm enjoying that more than most modern TV shows by far. That's the Sean Bean's TV show based on the Bernard Cornwell books. I might start one other older TV show just to get like the foul taste of Monarch out of my brain.
Yeah.
I really would love to find what was it called? I'm not getting sidetracked. Anyway, what else am I reviewing? Sharp. Oh, there's a show called 30 Coins. It's a horror TV show based from HBO España, which means Spain, it's a really good horror TV show. I want to get back to that. But you have to watch it, at least the first season, fully subtitled. And so it's kind of like I can't just sort of like watch it. You got to slow watch it. You know what I mean? So that takes a while for that. Be on Roman's channel Thursday for The Black Hole, which is better than Interstellar and better than like any other films with black holes since then. Sadly enough, you would think when we learn more about black holes, we would actually make an even better movie than The Black Hole about black holes. Okay. What else? Oh, my Friday Fandemonium live stream 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday. Unfortunately, I won't have any unboxings this week, so it might be a shorter show than my usual hour and a half. But we'll get some stuff out there. We'll talk about some stuff. I'm also on every Jacob stream except for one for the next month. What was it this week? What's this weekend, Jacob?
Favorite westerns.
Yep, favorite westerns. Then next Tuesday is Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes,
starring Peter O'Toole, who was mentioned in the chat before. What else?
Yes.
I think that's all I got. Well, not all, but I think that's what I got going on.
Cool. Oh, well,
Maybe I stopped reviewing Doctor Who from the very beginning.
There you go. Yes, I also will be on Roman's stream talking about a black hole. And what?
A black hole. Like,
yes.
Just blame Mando. Don't ask questions.
Mando.
Blame Mando. Blame Mando.
And Saturday we'll be going over our favorite westerns. It'll be a fun one. I love westerns. One of my favorite genres, right there. And next Tuesday is Lawrence of Arabia.
And we did the
that might be a long
original versus remake this weekend too. You also go watch that.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that's all I got. Well, guys, Thanks for coming on, talking about this movie. Thanks to the chat for hanging with us. And I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see y'all next time.
We ride our horses naked into the sunset.
Yes.